Welcome to Why I Left, a podcast that explores the Great Resignation. I'm your host, Brian Aquart. Join me as I chronicle real stories from real people about the reasons they decided to leave their jobs during the pandemic and what has happened since. Hello, and thanks for tuning into this episode of the Why I Left podcast. In today's episode, I chat with Kate Walker. Kate is the founder of Kate Walker Executive Coaching and is a business professional and career development expert. She inspires people to take confident action as a part of them pivoting from what was to what will be. I really love how she's flipped the old approach of if you're not winning, you're losing, to a more positive approach of if you're not winning, you're learning. Let's go check out her story. All right, welcome back. So our guest today is Kate Walker. Kate is an HR consultant and executive coach who not only helps people seeking better workplace outcomes, but she has a great resignation story of her own that I'm excited for her to share. So hi, Kate. How you doing today?
Hi, Brian. I'm good. So good to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you joining us today. And so now before we kind of get into, the great resignation and really some of the trends that are happening in the workplace, would love for you to share with our listeners a little bit about your background and where you call home.
Yes, I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm a California girl. And my background is I grew up in the Sacramento area, and I knew that I wanted to go to college in Southern California. So I made my way to San Diego State University and got my education there. And when I was in college, I knew I wanted to be in the music industry, the entertainment industry. So after college, that took me up to Los Angeles. And I worked for a very renowned music talent agency. And I've told some funny stories in that. I think at the time I was making, I don't even know, $6.96 an hour. I was not making a lot, but I got a lot of free concert tickets, which was fun. But I knew ultimately that probably the music industry and that whole scene wasn't for me. So I had a friend who worked at a temp agency in the Bay Area, and she knew I was not really having, that I wasn't sure that my career was in the music industry. So she said, well, hey, if you want to move to the Bay Area and I'm working at this temp agency, I'll get you a temp job. Come on up. So I left Los Angeles, moved to the Bay Area, and she did send me out on a temp job. And she sent me out to a temp job at a biotech firm in the HR department. And just coming from the glam music industry, I was thinking, what am I doing here? I'm like a fish out of water. What am I doing here? But I grew to learn about human resources, which I found to be really, really fascinating and really cool, because to me, you could work with everybody at the company. There were all kinds of different ways to serve everybody at the company. I thought, well, this is interesting. So this is interesting, but I don't think biotech is the right industry for me. So by chance, or maybe not by chance, I found a job in San Francisco working for a global ad agency in their HR department. So when I was there, I thought, I think I found myself a match. And I did spend a couple decades in human resources working in creative environments. So I've worked in global ad agencies. I've worked for entertainment companies. I've also worked in sports. And I've, really just moved my way up the HR career ladder, learning new things and working with different teams, working with different people, doing different trainings and development to make sure that my HR skills were honed and that I was good at what I was doing. So that's my journey.
No, that's awesome to hear. And, HR holds a near and dear place in my heart as well. So I love to hear that. And so, you talked about kind of entering the HR space. So what have you been passionate about professionally? As you were there for a couple of decades, so something's kept you there, right?
It has. And I mean, it might sound cliche, but it is really about the people. I like in human resources that we are helping the people. And there's nothing I love more than having a conversation with someone, supporting someone and having them have an aha moment or a breakthrough or get an action plan. So I really felt like it was the results of those conversations, those one-on-one conversations or small group conversations where an individual or a team had an action plan, a result where it's like, thank you. Okay, now we know where we're going. We've been a little bit in the dark. So I would say as a human resources practitioner, you need to know so much. Really, the breadth and depth of the profession of the industry, it's vast. There's compensation, there's benefits, there's all the different things. I'm experienced in those things, but again, it's really the people part of the job and working with the teams, working with the leaders, getting into those team dynamics and those team complications, teams growing, teams needing to be fixed. That's really where I found my sweet spot, where I found my passion was in that part of the business, was with leaders, teams, people, and helping them move forward to reach their goals.
Oh, very nice. And then I saw there was a lot of different types of industries. So tell us a little bit more about kind of your work journey and what's worked well in the environments that you've been a part of.
Yes. Well, that's interesting. That's a great question, because I think that does go back to, I guess, my personal likes and my personal values. And I feel like I've been a creative person, but not creative in the sense that you'll find me painting or, creative in that way. But I like being around creativity. I like being around people that are creating and building. So I knew that I needed to be in creative industry, but I didn't know what I would be doing. So I feel like I found that happy medium in the fact that I have been in creative industry for my jobs, but then I found this human resources thing that I really love, so meshing the two. So as I mentioned, when I got out of college, I went into the music industry, and that was very creative, but I knew that wasn't a future job for me. Then I get into this biotech firm, and I'm thinking, okay, I like the HR, but the biotech piece, I'm a fish out of water.
Right.
So then I end up in these global advertising agencies, which were just so fascinating, because you had copywriters and you had art directors, you had creative directors, you had all these creative people. So I was sort of satisfying my creative desire to be in this environment, but I'm not the one being creative. I'm the one helping the people. Did that for many years, worked for a few different ad agencies, and then went into sports. I worked for a tennis organization, and which was really, really exciting, because I actually played tennis in my youth. And then I went into a global entertainment company, and I was there for 7 years. So again, always finding creative industry, but knowing where I fit in that industry, that was the key for me.
No, that's awesome to hear. And you talked a little bit about kind of what drew you to HR, really the people aspect of it. But one thing I would love for you to share, what is, let's say, like, what's one misconception that people may have of the HR field?
Ooh, okay, that's a great question. I have a great answer for you. HR, I feel like there is a misperception that when you go to HR, you're in trouble, there's a problem. And sometimes that is the case. But honestly, the people that go to HR are the smart people. They're the people looking for answers. They're looking for support. They're looking for help. They're looking for coaching. They're looking for a path forward. So it's when the people coming to HR are the people having, I think, greater success at the company or greater success in their job. And again, the people that are staying away who think, oh, I can't go to HR. That means I've done something wrong, or someone will see me over there talking to her and they'll think something's wrong. Complete opposite. We are the secret weapon. We are the secret weapon to help you with your success. We know a lot of the inner workings of the company. We know different rhymes and reasons for how promotions work, promotion cycles. We know we have a lot of information that we're happy to share with you to help you become successful, for us to help you get on a path to find your personal success. So HR is a secret weapon.
No, and I appreciate you sharing that, because a lot of times, at least, in a past life, I was very much involved, and, you get this misperception that it's all about hiring and firing. And look, does that happen?
Yeah.
Yes, obviously it happens.
Yes.
But this move towards us being that real partner, right? That business partner, which is, verbiage that's now getting, out there a bit more, is really true. Right. And so I appreciate you sharing that. So now I'd like to take you back. Let's go back in time. And obviously this show, wouldn't be a show about the Great Resignation if we didn't really talk a little bit about COVID, right? So I want to take you back to March of 2020. The world is introduced to COVID. You probably remember where you were during that weekend when everything shut down. But would love for you to talk a little bit about how the pandemic affected you.
So interestingly, I think at the end of February, early March, I had just gotten off a business trip from Seattle. And typically when I was in Seattle, I would stay in, I think it was Kirkland, which was this, like, the hub of, there's this outbreak at this facility. It was in Kirkland or, Seattle. And I'm like, I was just there. Now, I was just on a business trip. So I'd come back from this business trip, and I think I had to go out to my local office a time or two, but I was starting to feel like something, there was something was greatly amiss. This COVID thing was happening. I didn't really want to be going into the office. I was feeling nervous. So I wanted to pull back and not go in. And that's when my company did say, okay, everybody, we're taking everybody out of the office. We're going to bring everybody home. So at that point I felt a sense of relief, like, okay, let's just figure this whole thing out. I feel safer at home. So for me, and everybody has a different COVID experience. For me, I call it a spectrum. There's a COVID spectrum, and there's people that adjusted fairly well in their work circumstance due to COVID, and other people that really struggled quite mightily in their COVID work experience. For me, I actually liked being pulled out of the office. I liked working from home. I feel like I've got my laptop, I've got my calendar, I've got my cell phone. I'm organized. I have a plan. I get up. I know where I need to be, what I need to be doing. So for me, being pulled home and working from home was actually was a big deal, because the other thing with this corporate job I was going to is that I had a commute, and I was commuting as many as 4 hours per day, to and from this office. So. And I'd known a few years prior to COVID that, okay, this is really not going, this is really hard for me. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up, but that's a part for a different part of the story. But so coming off the road for me due to COVID was really a great thing for me. It really helped me, again, get off the road, get off the commute. I was organized. I was getting my work done. So COVID for me was a work from home, I'll say, was a positive for me.
Very nice. And so what were some of the things that you started to learn during this time?
As far from a work point of view?
Yeah, from a work point of view.
Well, I mean, again, everybody had a different experience. For me, it's like, I'm efficient, I'm effective. I know what I need to get done. I'm going to get it done. I'm having proactive communication. I'm being proactive with who I need to talk to. It is a time of being proactive. You really did need to be proactive and do a lot of reach out. And I think that some people went a little more inward. Obviously, working from home, there are a lot of different experiences. But for me, it's also being in human resources, we've got to be out there talking to the people, interacting with the people. So it just felt somewhat natural to me. Mm-hmm. I would say, though, being on back to back video calls is a little challenging. So that I learned that I can't book myself back to back, because that's really exhausting, staring at the screen and trying to be focused. That's the other thing too, is that you do need to learn how to engage with the screen and how to appear focused and appear engaged and be engaged. So there are a lot of learnings on the technology part as far as working remote.
Oh, definitely. And so how did the pandemic start to affect your relationship with your job at this time? You got the commute, you got everything happening nationally or globally, really. What was some of the effect that started to impact your job?
Well, again, I felt like I was keeping up and being efficient and being effective. So for me, I was feeling good. For me, for someone who was feeling good about it, I needed to make sure I was dialed in and being attuned and aware and empathetic to those who were not having it as easy as me, who were not acclimating or integrating as easy as me. There was someone on my team that reported to me that really struggled for a few months and just would say, this is really hard for me. You've got your family buzzing around you. You're hoping someone doesn't walk in back of you. There's all kinds of dynamics. So it was also helping people settle in and supporting them and making them feel, getting them into a groove where they could finally settle in. So there was a lot of that, helping others or being empathetic to others that just were having a little bit of a more challenging time that I was experiencing.
Yeah. And was there an impact on your business at all during this time?
No, the company I was working for, in fact, the sales, we were a company who was selling a product. The sales were going through the roof. In fact, we were selling out and then the supply chain issues were happening and we couldn't keep up with the supply chain. So we actually did quite well during the pandemic. Our sales were extraordinary. We were in a position where we didn't have to lay anybody off due to loss of sales. So we were in a pretty unique position in that we were strong. Although, again, it was, yes, the company's strong, the sales are strong. It was just keeping the people strong, keeping the people going, because there was so much unknown. And the question inevitably is, what's the plan? What are we doing? When are we going back? Are we going back? What's next? What's happening next? So there's a lot of uncertainty. So as an HR professional, HR representative, working with my team and my leaders and the company leaders to talk about what is next and how are we supporting people in that way.
No, definitely. And so now I notice you were in your role for your last role for around 6 years.
Yes.
And so now you decide to resign April 2021,
Yes.
right? So as the show notes, so why did you leave your job during the pandemic?
Yes, and it was during the pandemic. I know. Well, as I'd mentioned, so twofold. There were personal reasons and professional reasons, and I'd reached, I guess, a crossroad in both areas. And one exercise that I like to do, and also I have different teams do this or different groups do this, is really a values exercise. Really getting in touch with what are your values, what's really important for you. And I think values stay mostly the same over the years, but some things can shift. And I felt like I was at a point in my life and in my career where my values were shifting slightly, where things like flexibility just were really going to the top of the list. I was really, really yearning for a lot more flexibility. The word freedom, I need a little more freedom. I was yearning for more freedom. I was yearning for just those kinds of things that I felt like my corporate job was not able to deliver as mightily as I was wanting. So really getting in touch with on a personal level, my values. And it's like, am I in line with my values for what I want to do now and into the future, or am I not exactly in alignment? And I felt like I was not exactly in alignment. I would say another value that I came to identify as being very important to me was time. And as I'd mentioned, I was in this commute, which was taking a lot of my time. And I felt like I didn't want to spend the time doing that anymore. So there were a myriad of different reflection points, I guess, where I thought, where am I now? Where do I want to be in the future? Is it lining up with my values? Am I maximizing my time? And also, as a human resources professional, as we've talked about, you're doing so many different things. And obviously in pandemic and with COVID, a lot of our time in HR was spent on navigating the pandemic and COVID and how are we going to support the employees? A lot of bandwidth and time was spent on that. And that also gave me the opportunity to reflect and say, well, how do I like to spend my time supporting my clients, supporting my team? And it always came back to, as I said at the beginning of the broadcast, it was always supporting the leaders and the managers and the teams and that team dynamic and helping the teams move forward with their goals and helping teams and break down and helping them get the plans to move forward. So I knew that I wanted to spend a more concentrated part of my day and of my time supporting my clients so that they were getting results. And yes, there's so many important aspects in HR as a whole function. But for me, there were just a few key areas where I thought, I feel like I can be more impactful as a full-time, even in corporate HR. I am like a full-time coach, but stepping out of corporate, I really want to have a specific focus on being a coach and help people impact and get the results they want and bringing my experience to them so that I can help them, leverage and see things they may not be seeing. So it was just a more specific opportunity that I was looking for, which led me to leave corporate. And I left an amazing job with an amazing team of people, but just that things have shifted for me and I want to go do something that meets those values and meets the needs for my next chapter.
Yeah. And, we've talked with a lot of folks who have had similar thought processes during that time, right? That this whole value alignment, there have been a lot of good discussions, especially in season 1 about that too. And, so what has happened since you left?
Wow. Okay. Yes. So, wow, a lot has happened. So, I've been, back when I was about 16 years old, I dreamed of working in corporate. It was my dream. I wanted to work in a glamorous setting. I wanted to work in maybe a glamorous building with really great people. So I fulfilled that dream. I did go to corporate. I worked for these great companies. So I did have to take some time to, I guess, mourn that loss or kind of retire that chapter and just think that was a really beautiful time. And I wanted it, but that's not what I want now. And that's take some time to digest. And I actually thought in leaving corporate, I would just hop out and that would be that was in the past and that was great. But it did actually take some time to kind of process and think about, wow, that was a lot of my time. And that was a goal I achieved. And I need to kind of process on that. So that took me, it's been a process longer than I thought, really kind of mourning, or for lack of a better word, or just, retiring that chapter. And as you probably know, Brian, then you've got to put on your entrepreneurial hat. And that's a whole different hat. And when you've come from the structure of corporate, and when you've come from the structure of especially working for a brand that's very popular, and you do everything you can to protect the brand, and you have to be very careful in how you move personally, professionally, it's just the protection of the brand. So then you're hopping out into entrepreneurship. It's like, hey, I'm the brand. I can do whatever I want. There's no rules, there's no guardrails. So then really establishing, well, what is my brand? What are my brand values and what are my brand guidelines and how do I do that? And I think that the other thing for me, having come from corporate and working in HR is really finding, I think there's also more opportunity as an entrepreneur to find more playfulness. So that's something I've been giving thought to as well, is that yes, we have to have the structure, we have to have the meetings, and we've got to be building this or building that, but there should also be a sense of playfulness with this. It should be fun. So it's really just having those growing pains, for lack of a better word, or growth opportunities to figure out that was then, this is now, what does now look like? What does the future look like? And how do we balance building a business, growing a business, serving the clients in a way that, it is serving them, helping them, but playful as well.
No, definitely. So it's like I can hear the learnings throughout the process, that you've gone through. So that's always awesome to like see it come to life like this. And so, we've teed it up a couple of times. We talked about Kate Walker Executive Coaching. So tell us more about your company and, tell us more about your company and some of the things that you do there.
Yeah. So I do. The name of my company is Kate Walker Executive Coaching. At the end of the day, Brian, I'm a very experienced, seasoned human resources professional, human resources expert. That's, I've done all the things. So that's what I bring to my clients is I've got this wealth, this breadth and depth of HR experience. That's really who I am and what I do. So that's what I bring to my clients. I serve and support my clients in a couple of different ways. I serve them as far as a company might bring me in to, for example, I have one company that they're not a startup, but they're a smaller company where everything just completely imploded. And that's a very long story, but they needed help. We need help building a leadership team. We need help even knowing what the leadership team will be doing, what those job descriptions are. We need help determining what we'll even pay them. We need help determining how we're going to train them and onboard them. So that's a project I came into where it was a complete rebuild. And supporting these two leaders that have gigantic hearts, but just didn't know how. They kind of saw the vision down the road, but they didn't really know how. We think we want to go there. We can see the North Star. We don't know how to get there. We don't know how to put all the pieces into place. So I support companies by way of that, by kind of rebuilds, if you will, team or company rebuilds. I also have clients that bring me in, startup types of clients that have had fast growth, high growth. And the HR, they've got an office manager doing HR tasks and it's completely gotten away from them and things have fallen through the cracks or things are just not working. So it's like, hey, can you come in and help us with performance reviews, performance management? Can you come in and help us? It's those kinds of projects where it's like, help us with our people processes. So helping companies get those kinds of things done and over the finish line. And then what I really love in my work is obviously the coaching, the one-on-one coaching, where you're working in a container with someone where they really want to accomplish something. There's a goal that they really want to work toward, and they want to invest the time. They have the passion to do it, and they need a supportive coach to be there alongside them as a strategic partner, as a thought partner. So I love those interactions. So I have one-on-one clients that I'm working with in that way. So those are some of the main things I do. But yeah, I work primarily with company leaders, team leaders, managers. But on the other side, I actually have a woman I've been mentoring who is a couple of years out of college, who is trying to find her footing, and I've been helping her keep her confidence up, just to say, you've got this amazing background. A company is going to just hire you so quickly. And helping her do some interview preparation. So yeah, that's maybe a little bit more on a mentorship level, but I've really, really enjoyed my conversations with her on a little bit of a different level. But typically it's like the CEOs, the team leaders, the managers, the people in the team setting. That's primarily who I work with, or, leadership clients.
No, that's great. And so how does someone, hire a coach and really what are some of the benefits?
Boy, that's a great question. That's a really great question. And it's interesting too. And I'd love to get your feedback as well. But I feel like we're in a place, especially with social media, where someone can just say, I'm a coach and yes, my clients make 20K months. You can really say anything and claim anything and put anything out there. So, and sometimes I see these things and it just feels very unfortunate, I guess, but I don't know that there's a way to really control some of what's happening on social. So I would say as far as finding a coach, you really want to find somebody who has experience, who has been trained. I mean, I think of someone like me. Again, I'm under the human resources umbrella for coaching, but I've been in corporate for 2 decades. I have different certifications. I've taken different trainings. I've worked with hundreds, if not thousands of leaders and teams. So there's a track record there. I guess that's what I'm getting at is, what is this person's track record, real track record of results? Certainly things like testimonials are important so you can get a sense. I think that, hopping on discovery calls, things of that nature, where you can get a sense of each other and see if it's a mutual fit. There are people that I talk to that I maybe am not the best coach for them. And so there's some mutual agreements, but I think trying to get a sense of the person's experience and someone who's a little bit ahead on maybe, I'm ahead on my journey versus someone who's further back behind me. So it's like, how can I bring someone along so that they can, kind of come along and get trained and get up to speed, and I can bring my experience to them and I can show them the pitfalls and the watch outs and all those different things so that they don't have to take as long to get the results that they want.
Yeah, no. And you mentioned this like flood. I think over these past couple of years, there has been a flood of people who are coaches and they have the solopreneurs and all these things that are out there. And it does feel like it's like an oversaturation. But you mentioned a great point around, so the piece around, how does someone hire the coach? I think you mentioned looking at their track record, right? So if there is, whether it's LinkedIn or if they have a site or whatever the case may be, seeing for whatever it is that they're looking for, does that person have some experience in that space? I think that is really key. But you're right. But online, you see, hey, 5x your income in 30 days. You're like, that's likely. I mean, that may be a story for someone, but that is not the norm,
No, it's not the norm. It's not. There's a lot of shiny objects out there. Yeah. And, for someone like me, it's interesting. I've come from corporate. I never had to do marketing. People came to my office, they knocked on the door, and, there's a line outside my door, people wanting help and needing help. And then you come into the entrepreneur world. It's like, well, I bring all this experience, but then you're just not known in social media circles yet. So that's another interesting challenge is, how do you let more people know about your experience and how you can help them and how you get the results and how you're a proven entity in the socials? So that's something I'm certainly learning in my journey.
Definitely. And so what was your, if there was one, but what was your pivotal moment in starting your business?
My pivotal moment. I think my pivotal moment was proof of concept. So when I had the idea that I wanted to go and be more of a full-time coach, really in more of those one-on-one conversations, more of those small group conversations, helping people in that more targeted way, I thought, well, I wonder if this is even possible. So I went to, and this is, I was still at corporate, but I went to go set up a website. I said, okay, well, if I'm going to be in business, I would need a website. So let's go build that. If I was going to go be in business, I would need to try to find some clients. So let's try to go find some clients. And I'll give credit to a website. There's a website called Newme.com. And it's a places for coaches. And I was on Newme quite, a few years ago. Newme is now exploded with popularity. And there's some different algorithms that I think reward those that kind of work the system. But a few years ago, my phone started ringing. I put a profile up on Newme, and my phone started ringing. I thought, okay, this seems kind of easy as far as getting clients. And I actually met some really, really incredible clients, some very seasoned leaders, some very seasoned executives that found me on Newme. And these people are still my clients and people I work with to this day. So I felt like it was a little bit of proof of concept, like, okay, I can build a website. Oh, I can get clients. I think that gave me a little boost of confidence that, okay, this is possible. I think I can do this. So I had it in my mind and then started planning, okay, what are my next steps to leave corporate? So yeah, a little bit of building something to see if there was anything there.
No, I like that. Now, if someone was, let's say, starting their own business, what are the top 5 things they should consider?
For starting their own business.
Starting their own business. Yep.
Okay. Well, number one, I have to just share, and Brian, I'd love your thoughts on this. Starting your own business is not for the faint of heart. You really have to get in there and be like, you know what, I want this. I'm doing this. And people might tell me my idea is stupid or it's going to take too long. You have to get in there and just keep going. Just keep going forever, however long. It's like, I'm just going to keep doing this. I'm just going to keep showing up. And we know that a lot of businesses fail. And it's also because people just stop showing up. They stop doing the thing. So I think it's that just perseverance. Like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to keep going. I would say that's number one. I would say also interacting with different mentors or people that, again, have been there, who are a few steps ahead of you, and tapping into different mentors or coaches to learn from them. I've had a number of coaches and different mentors since leaving corporate, a lot of them. And I've learned a ton. And so I have to give a lot of credit to me hiring coaches and getting into different groups to learn and grow. I'd say that's number 2 for someone wanting to go into business. Number 3 is really, honestly, you've got to keep your finances together. And that's something that, leaving corporate, I wanted to make sure I had a financial runway. So which I did. I built up a bit of a financial runway, but then it's managing, really keeping an eye on your finances, not letting anything, you do have to organize your finances. So that would be number 3, is not letting that get away from you. Number 4, and maybe these aren't in specific order, but I would say mindset work is major. I did so much mindset work ahead of leaving corporate. I read tons and tons of books. I really needed to make sure I was ready for this journey and that I had the mindset. And again, the mindset does help you keep going when times are tough or things are challenging. Having that mindset, and maybe similar to that as number 5, is just my own continued professional development and learning. I read at least a book a week. I'm always reading. I'm listening to podcasts. I'm just trying to stay on top of information and what's happening, and making sure that my skills and tools are as sharp as possible as I support my clients as they are working toward getting their results. So those are 5 in no particular order.
No, I like that. Thank you for sharing. And now, at the time of this interview, so you've been in business for almost 2 years now, right? And so and it sounds like, you have some clients that you've maintained over some years, right? And so what are some of the success stories that you can share?
Success story. I think the success stories are always when your clients are getting results, when your clients are getting the achievements. Like I mentioned a bit ago, I've got this company with a team of 25 that was in a really, really challenging place when I came on to help them. And they were really, the culture was down, the people were down, everything was just broken. So helping them just one step at a time. It's like, look, we're going to do this, and then we're going to get to this, and we're going to get to this. So helping them see just sort of these bite-sized pieces that we can accomplish. And now we're maybe 6 months down the road with all this work we've done. And I was actually with the team on Monday in a conference room, and just looking around, it's like, wow, we built this here. This is the team. The team is here. Yeah. And we were doing some team building with them, and we were doing some different exercises with them and talking about how are things going. Things are shifting, changing. How are you doing? It's things like that are so rewarding. Get the clients and the results.
Yeah, that must be awesome to see too. Like these, a lot of the work in, I'll say our, even though I'm not in the space now, but I'll say the work in our space it's tough to like put your finger on it, right? But
yes.
Like when you actually get a chance to see it, you're working on building a team and whatnot, and all these conversations that felt theoretical at one point, to now
yes.
see the actual person in front of you, or see the result of whatever initiative. That's very, very rewarding.
It is very rewarding. It is. It really is. It's something that lights me up. I feel so passionate about it. Again, it's really just bringing my experience into a situation where people want that experience. They're going to leverage the experience and allow the guidance to happen, allow the coaching to happen. Those are just beautiful interactions where people want the help. People have reached out for the help. We're connecting. We're getting the plan. We're doing the plan. it's just, again, I can't, and I'm preaching to the choir, but hiring a coach, hiring help, someone to help you down that path, it's just, you're saving so much time. You're going to be saving money. You're learning the different, I'll say shortcuts. You're learning the different ways to get things done in a speedier fashion. So I just can't emphasize enough the benefits to hiring a coach to help you get those results in a quicker way.
No, that's awesome. Now, a part of the show, I like to share some advice with others, right? And I noticed that a portion of your practice, addresses, building confidence and really staying positive, right? And so given all the talk around, and look, I mean, obviously given this show, right? So talk around the Great Resignation and, people are really searching for new things. So while dealing with all the stressors that are happening in life, whether it's obviously things at home, maybe things at work, obviously there's a lot of political, social unrest, right? All the things, if you will. So how would you advise someone to set intentions and really stay positive during adversity while they search for a more fulfilling role?
That is a beautiful question. Thank you for asking. That's amazing, because it is something I think each of us human beings are working on a daily basis, myself included. And it does take intention to have that focus. It takes intention to, and I have journals right here. I have 2 journals in front of me. I've got my books. I've got my podcast. I think that I think it's wanting to show up, for one example, I know I need to clear some, mental clutter or different things happen. So it's like, I need to turn off the news. I know that affects me. I know that I can't take it for too long. So that's something I've decided, my intention is I want to have just a more clear mind. I need to turn off the news. I need to make sure I don't engage with that. I need to make sure that I'm taking a daily walk, that I'm really looking at the trees and looking at the birds and looking at nature and just decompressing. So that's something that I do. I try to go to the gym a couple times a week. And it really is, in my point of view, very intentional to stay positive. It is, having those affirmations. Literally, I take walks and I have affirmations like, okay, Kate, until you get to that next tree over there, say these affirmations or these mantras. It's a daily practice, especially as you mentioned, with all these competing things happening in the world and the news stories and all the things. It can be easy to get pulled down into it and spend a lot of time thinking about it. But for me, it's the journaling, it's the intentional affirmations and those kinds of things to keep myself uplifted. So those are a few examples of things that I do. And it's a daily practice.
No, that's great. And now what more do you think employers could be doing to better support employees in the workspace? I know you work a lot with leaders and managers. So this is probably right up your alley.
Yes, and that's another great question. Thank you so much for asking. I feel like there is a shift, and I unfortunately, it may have come during the COVID time where managers were realizing that their people needed greater support, mental health support, especially. I know that that's a really hot topic. This company I'm supporting also, we've talked about the PTO policy, paid time off policy, and how their staff, and they've been through a lot of transition, was finding it hard to take PTO and really unplug. So I've had conversations with the leadership team as far as, I think we need to shift the culture a little bit and shift what PTO is known for. And I think we need to shift the culture in that, hey, now that we're staffed up, now that we've got a plan, we're more resourced. When you take PTO, we want you to unplug. We want you to get that rest and relaxation. So it's things as easy as that, as far as letting someone unplug and take that PTO time and not pinging their phone with text saying, hey, one quick question for you. Can I get a quick phone call? And sometimes emergencies happen, but I think it's allowing employees to have that space to unplug by way of PTO or by way of ending the workday at a reasonable hour so that they can unplug, having those mental health resources available. Things like employee assistance programs are great. And it is an interesting time in that, especially with mental health resources. And these are stories I hear a lot too, is that these resources are maxed out. Sometimes it's hard to get appointments with these people to get that support. And so that's a bigger challenge. But I think still companies supporting resources like that, I've seen a couple of employees take a personal leave where they need to step away and unplug for a couple of weeks due to different things. It's not that it's funny, but we've even seen a couple of celebrities who are getting off the social media, just saying, I can't do this for my own mental health. So these are important conversations, but I think, yes, as far as managers and leaders, it's being very attuned to what their people need and how we can support it to the best of our ability and to the best of company resources. Companies can only do so much, but I think being willing to go into those empathetic conversations to understand needs is important.
Oh, I agree. And now as Kate Walker, executive coaching continues to expand, right? What type of impact are you hoping to have in this next chapter of your professional life?
Oh, great question. I want to impact leaders. I want to be in conversations with leaders. I want to be in conversations with aspiring leaders that are up and coming. I think the leadership is so important. And I just, again, having worked with leaders and teams for so many years, I've kind of seen the things that work, the things that don't work, what pushes people's buttons, what gets people engaged, what gets people excited about the mission and the North Star and all of those things. So it's going to be impacting as many leaders as possible to impact positive employee experience or, positive experience overall. So that is my mission, to impact and inspire leaders and be in those great conversations where, especially people that are maybe new to leadership or potentially are really great at what they do, but leadership is new to them, just giving themselves the permission. Again, we talked about, it can feel weird going to HR, but reaching out to a coach just to say, hey, you know what, I am a leader and I could use support in these areas. I want to be a better leader. I want my team to feel more inspired. Reaching out for those resources. And like we talked about, there are qualified coaches to help with those things. So that's what I want to do is impact and inspire leaders to be better leaders. And when you're a better leader, you impact the bottom line.
Absolutely. And, you raise a good point there in that sometimes leaders fear of feeling weak, if you will, don't go to their internal HR for this type of support.
Yeah.
So you see a lot of leaders reaching out to, executive coaches, either on their own accord, or sometimes it's even, as a benefit, if you will. And so that I think you raised a good point that people may not know about, that there are times where leaders in organizations definitely go outside for that extra help.
100%. And I've been called by many HR teams or learning development teams where they're looking for an external coaching resource. So I do that work as well, where you get the call from the company saying, hey, we've got a couple people that could use support. And I think that's amazing that a company would also support that type of resource for an employee. But then there are times when you just know on your own that you want to invest in your own development and you want that information. And it's just a development opportunity. It shouldn't be seen as shameful or embarrassing or, I'm just not as good of a boss as the person who works across the hall from me. So I'll just kind of stay in my lane. No, there's help out there. There's support out there. There are great people to work with, great coaches to work with that can really support you. And I would say too, as far as becoming a great leader, we've talked about a few things, but it's not a super heavy lift. It's not, I know there are very complex leadership business models and those things are wonderful, but I know my approach is, it's a little easier. It's like, look, we're going to get a couple things done, a couple things that are easy and approachable and doable. We're not going to do the 20-step Harvard Business School model. I'll save that for someone else. That's not me, but we're going to make it easy, approachable, accessible, and have a little fun along the way.
I like that. And I'm a fan of coaching. I've had a few different coaching experiences and they have been nothing but beneficial. So
they are.
Yeah.
They are.
Now, I understand you've developed a personal brand worksheet that could really benefit some of our listeners. So tell us a little bit about that and where someone could find and complete that.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for asking. So this team I met with on Monday, my team, where I'm helping rebuild their leadership team, I actually ran this exercise with them and I loved it. It's a very popular exercise. So it's called a personal brand audit, or I also call it a leadership brand audit. So, what is a brand? A brand is, you think of a brand Starbucks, you think of a brand, Nordstrom. These are brands, and brands have identities. And what people may not realize is that we are also a brand. We have identities. We have reputations. We are known for something. So with this particular exercise, it's just a chance to reflect about your own brand and how you think you show up and what you think that you are known for. So on my brand worksheet, there's about 70 different adjectives that describe, and they're all positively framed. Nothing is negative. So you're going to go through the worksheet and choose about 10 that you think best represent your brand. This is how I think I show up. This is how I think I'm seen. This is what I feel confident is how I deliver, my work or something like that. So you would choose your 10, just do a little self-reflection. The second worksheet I have is a peer audit. So if you're feeling courageous, which I hope you are, you would take the peer audit, same 70 adjectives. You would take that to your boss. You would take it to a colleague. You could take it to whoever and ask them to complete the form on your behalf and check 10 boxes for how they perceive you, how they, judge you, if you will. And then the next part of the exercise is to look at your self-audit and then to look at the peer audit and see if there are any gaps. So for one example, let's suppose on my own self-audit, I check the analytical box. I feel like I'm analytical. I feel like I show up as analytical. I'm very proud of my analytical skills. It's part of my job. It's part of who I am. I feel confident that I show up as analytical. I feel good about that. I'm going to check that box. Well, supposing you do 3 or 4 peer audits to get that feedback and no one has checked the analytical box. Okay, at that point you have a gap. It's like, what? I was sure I showed up as analytical. Like this is surprising to me. So it's really helping you identify different gaps like that, which are really just awarenesses and opportunities to bridge that gap. If I need to be perceived as analytical, especially to advance my career, to get to go for a new job. Well, if I'm not being perceived as analytical, that's going to be an issue that I need to resolve so that I can be seen in that way and show up better in that way. So let me figure out some different steps for how I can really bridge that gap and elevate that asset or that asset. So that's a toolkit I have. Again, I just did it in person on Monday with the team, but I've designed it in a very DIY way. It's very easy to use, very easy to implement. So probably the best way to get it to me right now, or the best way for me to get that to you, is to email hello@katewalker.com, and my team can send that to you right away. So it's hello@katewalker.com, and we can send you that personal brand audit toolkit, and you can start doing your own self-assessment.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. Well, look, Kate, this was a really good discussion. I wanted to just thank you again for reaching out to me and for us to connect on this and taking some time to join the show today. I enjoyed, learning about your work, kind of this transition from the HR space now into executive coaching, and really, really just love hearing these types of stories. And that background is really key. So where can some of our listeners support you and find you?
Thank you. Okay, so I have a website, www.katewalker.com. Just some basics on the website as far as what I do, how to work with me, those kinds of things. I also spend time on Instagram at the Kate Walker. I'm on Instagram, and that's where I post just that's where my playful side comes out, posting different posts about leadership and posts about myself. So that's where I spend that's where most of my creativity happens, is on Instagram. And of course I'm on LinkedIn as well. We know LinkedIn is more of that business place. And occasionally I post up on LinkedIn different, more business related articles. So yeah, you can find me those three places.
Okay, very nice. Well, look, all right, that'll do it for today's episode. Again, I want to thank Kate Walker for joining us today. I'll be sure to share her information in the show notes, and we'll also include, the link where if you're interested, you can check out this personal brand audit. All right.
Yeah. So, email me.
Definitely. So I hope you all have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Kate, thank you again.
Thank you so much, Brian. I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. See you next time. Thanks again for listening to Why I Left. Be sure to join us next time for more stories from the Great Resignation. Visit us at www.whyileft.co. That's whyileft.co. And subscribe to the show on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.